It's a new year, so you know what that means, right? Harlan Coben has got a new show on Netflix, and the biggest shock about it is that it doesn't have Richard Armitage in it. Instead, starring James Nesbitt as Simon, who's searching for his runaway daughter, we saw cults, killers, many deaths, and lies being at the heart of this 8-episode series. With an ending that saw the person that was responsible for Aaron's death being revealed, and it also leaving a bit of a sour taste to it due to it finishing on one large lie. Let's dive into this show, break down the ending, and I'll also share what I thought of it. Here is a review of Runaway and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained. When it came to the ending of this show, it quite literally had us on the edge of our seat until the very final frame. With the different stories that were going on, we saw that as Simon was summoned to see Rocco for the final time because he had information on Paige's location, Ash and Dee Dee had gone to the estate to kill Aaron, as they weren't aware of the fact that he was already dead. By this point, we'd found out that Aaron was a child of the Shining Truth that was set to inherit a fortune, so that made him a target. With them believing that Simon was after them because Elena received a message on her phone from him and then seeing it after they killed her, they followed Simon into the basement where they then ambushed Rocco and killed him and Luther. In the crossfire, Ash was killed, and then when Dee Dee followed Simon, she was thrown over the edge of the balcony before she could kill him and she fell to her death. This was done by the member of the Shining Truth that was warning her son that wasn't a part of the cult. She didn't want her son to be killed and didn't agree with the sons being hunted down, so by killing Dee Dee, that was her way of preventing any more from being killed. With Simon then in hospital, once he was out, he went to see his wife Ingrid, who was still in a coma from when she was shot by Luther in the early part of the season, and it was here where Paige was sitting by her bed. The daughter that he'd been so desperate to find ended up coming directly to him. She'd been in rehab for a while and was getting her life back on track following Aaron's death. Even though the hunt for her was now complete, the question on who killed Aaron was still out there. With Ingrid waking up and then returning home, Paige revealed to her father that it was her that killed Aaron and justified it because he was leading her astray. At this point, we thought that the show would conclude with Simon keeping one final secret from the world, which was that his daughter was a murderer, when in actual fact, that wasn't the truth. The truth was that Ingrid actually ended up killing Aaron and blamed him for leading Paige astray. However, there was one final, sick and dark twist that the show wanted to give us. This was that Ingrid was once a part of the Shining Truth cult, and Paige and Aaron weren't actually a couple, but instead they were actually half-brother and sister. Paige was looking into her genes and her family history, and it was here where she found out that Aaron and her were related. This was something that was actually in front of us the entire time as well. There were 2 mattresses inside of the apartment that they were staying in, not one, which showed that they weren't sleeping together. And as Simon said, why would a young couple sleep in separate mattresses? I like the fact that it was right under our noses in the most subtle of ways, but the thought never crossed my mind. Once it was revealed to us that Ingrid was Aaron's mother, with Ingrid fleeing the cult, she didn't know that Aaron was her child, meaning that she killed her own son. Paige didn't want Simon to tell Ingrid that Aaron was her son because she felt like it would quite literally break her. So even though Simon agreed to no longer have any secrets within the family, this was one secret that they were going to keep for the protection of her sanity. Secrets were the very thing that caused the family to break, as Paige never told her mother and father who Aaron was, so the very thing that destroyed the family initially was going to be at the heart of it moving forward. The slow-moving dolly shot towards Simon during the ending and him looking at the 2 most important women in his life, his daughter and also his wife, it showed the confliction that was present in his head. The confused face that he had also showed that he couldn't shake the secret from his mind, and it highlighted how it was going to sit within his mind for eternity, and who knows, a damaging cycle could ultimately begin all over again. Even though the secret might protect Ingrid, it could harm Simon's sanity. The final thing that we saw was Simon looking down the lens of the camera, which almost put the question towards us. What would we do? Keep the secret or tell our significant other that they murdered their own flesh and blood? Outside of the death of Aaron and Ingrid being responsible, we also saw that the Shining cult was exposed and shut down. Elena's body was found and the funeral was held, which Simon attended, and also Elena's husband's biological daughter that he kept secret from her. My review of the show. When it comes to the Harlan Coben shows, I feel like I say the same thing every year. There's not really that much to them. A lot of the acting feels quite surface level. The performances aren't that convincing as they feel like they're on the level of watching a soap like Hollyoaks, and the writing of the plot doesn't feel that thought-provoking. But in saying that, it is very easy to watch, and it knows how to provide a good cliffhanger to the point where you're left wondering what's going to happen in the next episode. That happened on a few occasions for me as I was watching through the season. When it came to the different stories that we had going on, with Dee Dee and Ash, I feel like this story could have been completely separate and almost been its own show, as I quite enjoyed watching the duo going around and dealing with taking the different people out on the hit list. In saying that, I did find the cult element of the story to feel a little bit of a late addition though, and something that I didn't really get that invested in. I feel it just added an unnecessary complication to the story, but all other points of the story I thought were quite suited. I was absolutely gutted when Elena was killed. She was probably my favourite character, and I didn't think that she was actually going to die, to the point where I put on the following episode instantly to see what actually happened to her. When it came to Paige being missing, whilst I understand Simon's desire to get her back, I probably found her story to be the most underwhelming. She literally just rocked up next to the hospital bed during the ending, which I thought was a bit of a disappointment. We'd spent the entirety of the show seeing her avoiding her father, her being accused of killing Aaron, and Simon parting with tens of thousands of pounds to find her, all for her to just appear right at the end. When it came to the kill count in this episode and the way that they showed the deaths, they didn't hold back in the slightest. It made a refreshing change with them not cutting away, and it did catch me off guard initially. I respected it, but I just didn't expect it when I put the show on. When it comes to the performances in the show, personally, I thought a lot of them were pretty weak. There were only 3 performances that I thought were strong. They were James Nesbitt as Simon, Ruth Jones as Elena, and Maeve Courtier-Lilly as Dee Dee. Outside of that, the performances just really did feel like the words were being read off the page, and it was like GCSE drama. I thought it the most with the performances of Ash and also with Simon's son, Sam. The chemistry just wasn't really there with those characters, whoever they engaged with, and the acting level just felt quite poor. Outside of that, it was borderline soap level acting. I think that's why I find it so difficult to enjoy the Harlan Coben shows, because I can never truly get immersed and the acting just doesn't quite match the serious nature of the story that's at its core. When it comes to what I thought of this show overall and if it's actually worth a watch, even though the acting is relatively poor, it's watchable. It just doesn't offer much in terms of rooting for characters, getting to know and understand them, and truly caring about them. I don't know whether that's because that's what it's like in the book, or it's the performances in the show, or the direction that they're given, but as somebody who watches TV series for the characters and the way that they make me feel I missed something with this. However, it is gripping and I can see why it's number 1 on Netflix. It just always leaves you wanting more. So for that reason, I'd probably say that it's worth a watch if you like to be left guessing what's going to be happening. The story does get a tad confusing at points, and like I said, the cult part of the story does get a bit ridiculous, but for the most part, watching Simon try and hunt down his daughter that's run away and seeing the web of lies that it unveils, along with the quest for revenge that Dee Dee and Ash go on and the trouble that they get into, there's enough there to get lost for 8 hours and leave feeling like it's not been a total waste of time, which can often be the case with some TV. In the most recent years, I'd probably say that Fool Me Once was better than this, and also Missing You last year was probably a little bit better too. This one is enjoyable to watch, but just don't expect too much from it. Usually Netflix has a higher caliber of stories than a lot of ITV and BBC in the UK, but this feels like it's on a similar level to that, maybe even lower. So just have your expectations set to a certain level. If you've seen the other Harlan Coben shows, then you'll know what I mean, and you'll also know what you're walking into. So, there you have it, a review of Runaway and the ending explained.